Wasted money on cures. Forgot how to fix myself. They say that time is free. Then why is it so precious? Oh, I'll say memories in my head, like Polaroids on walls. They remind you to look ahead. Time is running out. Time is running out. Lately I've lost my track. I've sailed the deeper seas, hoping to find something to bring back better times. Oh, I'll say memories in my head, like Polaroids on walls. They remind you to look ahead. But time is running out. 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 Time is running. Time is running out. But time is running out. What if my best days are over? They can't be over. They can't be over now. Time is running out. What if my best days are over? They can't be over now. Time is running out. Time is running out. Time is running out.
Okay, hi there. It's Monday night. It's 6 o'clock. Welcome to the latest in our series of revision sessions. We take a key topic or topics or a key exam skill, and we just spend 25 minutes, 30 minutes max, doing some retrieval activities, doing some explanation, and getting you to contribute ideas through the live stream. If you're subscribed to the channel, please do that, and then you can add your voice to the live chat, and our production team is ready to pick out some of the best answers as they come through. We have an amazing group of students that are starting to really develop as we go through this term. Our weekly regulars, very high quality economic students, and this is great preparation. Maybe you got mocks after half term. Maybe you just want to put in an extra half an hour into the revision bank ahead of those big papers next year. So tonight's topics are inflation and unemployment. We've got a couple of case studies to look at. I think 3 countries. We're looking at 3 countries tonight. And we'll do that after we have been through 5 multiple choice questions, all past paper questions, and the big reveal. So let's start with the big reveal. So I give you 5 clues to an economy, and we're looking for the first correct answer. So feel free to post your answer. So a former Eastern Bloc country, formerly part of the Eastern Bloc planned economy, that joined the European Union in 2004. Gosh, 21 years ago. I remember it well. Most of you will be too young. So a European Union country that joined the EU in 2004. 2 coming in with Australia, and I think that's when they joined the Eurovision Song Contest, if memory serves. Second clue: the spectre of past hyperinflation still haunts their currency. Indeed, this country has a claim to having had the highest or the worst hyperinflation in recorded history in 19 46, if memory serves. Charlie B says Greg's. No, Charlie, that was last week. We did which business last week? Dan thinks it's Croatia. A couple of people thinking Poland will hold fire. Clue number 3. They have a strong manufacturing and export dependence on Germany. They're within the single market. A very high percentage of exports go to Germany, especially cars. So it's an interesting example of comparative advantage if you've been studying it. Answers flowing into the chat window if you're following the live stream here. We'll see if we pick out the correct one in a second or two. Clue 4. The Parliament is neo-Gothic, but the tax is flat. The Parliament is neo-Gothic, but the tax is flat. This is a good example of a country that has a flat rate tax system. Answers are flowing in. Austria, Romania, Hungary, Estonia, Argentina is not really a European Union country. 5th clue. Brussels gives the recipe, but Budapest stirs the goulash its own way. Slightly cryptic clue there. Let's give 5 seconds for answers to come through so you can lay claim to being one of the correct answers. And they're coming through very nicely now. Thank you to everybody who are joining us tonight. Jim in the office will be watching for the first correct answer, and we think it's Kian tonight. Our AI will double check that. Kian has indeed gone for Hungary. Really good example of an EU country which is now essentially out of step with mainstream EU policies under Urban. Okay, here we go. 5 multiple choice questions. Those of you with us live, feel free to have a go and keep your own score, please. I won't be taking in the question papers at the end. So these are all past paper questions on unemployment and inflation. Here's the first one. The major trading nation, country X, is in equilibrium at full employment national output. So a zero output gap. There's then a recession in its main international markets. What are the most likely consequences of this change for country X? What do we think? Now, to give you all everybody a clue to this, helpful clue, the answer is either A, B, C, or D. And I hope you appreciated that help. Most people, Ewan, Kronos, Nikita, Kian, coming in with B. Let's double check. Correct answer is B, yes. So it's a deflationary external shock. A recession and a trade partner will reduce AD. It's deflationary or disinflationary and could cause some cyclical unemployment. Good start, everybody. Please keep your own score. I'm not taking in the papers at the end. Question number 2. Asha is currently unemployed. She's been offered a job, but has decided to decline the offer and search for a better paid job. What type of unemployment is this? Is it cyclical, structural, frictional, or seasonal? What do we think here? If you're watching the live chat, as many of you are, post the answer, have a go. We love to see the answers coming through. Isaac and Will, Scanners, Nikita, Ewan, and Aki, I think have all got the right answer. Bianca, the answer is frictional. Good example of frictional. These are past paper questions. Question number 3. A country's central bank increases interest rates to reduce the rate of inflation. What will also result from this action? So what do we think here? Question number 3, frictional employment. Yes, people essentially in between jobs or people who are engaged in job search. Sometimes new entrants to the labour market. So country's central bank increases interest rates to reduce inflation. What will also reduce from this action? A few people saying B. It probably won't be B because if interest rates go up, that increases the incentive to save. Charlie B, Bianca, Nikita have all suggested this answer. Let's double check. It is C, yep. So rising interest rates brings down the growth of GDP. You can visualize that in ADS, but we don't use diagrams in this session. We just focus on economics instead. Question. So Connor says, does this live stream work for Educast? It certainly does. I always choose core topics for every example. That's my aim in these sessions. Question number 4 coming up. Who is most likely of those 4 to be categorized as being unemployed? A 19-year-old full-time student, 38-year-old father who chooses to stay at home, 42-year-old former bank worker who is economically active, or 68-year-old former steel worker. Which of those would be most likely to be categorized as unemployed? From those 4 scenarios, if you like, what do we think? Actually, quite an interesting range of opinions coming up here. Who's most likely to be unemployed? I think Nikita has the right answer. Let's double check. Yes, 42-year-old bank worker who's economically active. Okay, they were a bank worker. As long as they're actively engaged in the labour market, they can claim unemployment benefit. 38-year-old father is economically inactive. 68 former steel worker is economically inactive. Full-time student, even if they were looking for a job, they would not be able to claim unemployment benefit. So the answer is C. Now, not many people got that right. I think Zebi got it right, which is good to see, Nikita. But please keep your own score. Here's question 5, the last multiple choice question. Oh yes, I like this one. 2019, the price level in Nigeria increased by 11.4% compared to a 12.1% increase in prices in 2018. What does this represent? So you've got some concepts there. Have a go, please, at question 5. Those of you who are with us live tonight. We have an excellent number, considering it's half term. Lots of people joining in here. And we know that hundreds will tune in over the next few days. So if you're watching this on replay, just press that pause button if you need to take a moment to think about the question. What do you think? Ewan has come in. He thinks it's D. Zabi thinks it's D. Yep, I think Isaac is confirming this. Let's double check. Yes, inflation, prices going up, but disinflation because the rate of inflation came down. Now you need to know disinflation for your exam. It's a really topical kind of concept, which wasn't on the spec a few years ago, but it's now clearly back on the spec. So well done to Bianca, to Will and Isaac for getting that. Right, post your scores, please. Those of you watching live will have a 30-second scores on the doors. It's out of 5. If you're willing to share your score, please do so. So Ewan's got 4. Can anybody beat Ewan's score? Pretty good. I think question 4 might have foxed a few people. So Nikita thinks, 5 out of 5, superb. So most people are getting 3 or 4. Now these were all past questions, and I don't think that technically they're difficult. They're not theoretical questions, but a lot of these multiple choice questions on AQA, in particular OCR, are really knowing the detail. Okay, that's why we do these sessions, to help you just develop that little extra detail. Fantastic. Let's move on, everybody. Well done to Ewan. Now, here's the first little case study. I'm going to invite a 1-minute challenge. It's Turkey. Have a look at the chart. I've gone back to April 2025 to show the inflation rates across European countries. And our good friend Hungary comes in there at 4th. Turkey is way ahead. Turkey has by far the highest inflation in the European continent. Don't forget, Turkey is not part of the EU, but it is part of the customs union. UK comes in at 4.1%. This is using this harmonized index of consumer prices. Turkey has the highest inflation, mainly the result of Erdogan's long-standing unconventional policy, which involved keeping interest rates very low despite high inflation. This unorthodox approach, combined with a currency crisis, has led to a prolonged high rate of inflation. There is your background. Here we go. Here's a question coming up for you. And we'll post the best answers in the chat window, so please do contribute. Can you give me 2 possible economic effects of a high relative rate of inflation? Turkey is obviously a good example of that. Let's start the clock. So why does high inflation matter? But in particular, high relative inflation. So Turkey has 35% inflation. The European Union average is closer to 5, so 7 times higher. And we'll post some of the really good answers on the screen for you to look at. What are the consequences of high inflation? Yeah, so Dan there making the point that high inflation can ultimately feed through to weaker growth. There we go. Lower PPP, less consumption than growth. Well, there's Will. Nice use of concepts there from Will Carver. Decrease in real incomes lead to less consumption. AD shifts in, less growth. So that's a nice bit of development there. I really like Tom Callender's point, and we'll come back to Isaac's point in a second as well. Their exports will be less competitive as other competitive countries with lower inflation. Really, really good. Tom, you could then develop that point and talk about expenditure switching, because if they're substitute products, you then get a switching effect across price elasticity effect. Isaac talks about higher interest rates, so central bank response, which is the orthodox approach, but not in Turkey, impacting on growth. And I really like Ewan Hayes' contribution. By the way, there's loads of really good points coming through. Apologies if we don't always choose you. Reduced living standards, lack of investment, particularly I think with business uncertainty in terms of high cost push inflation, but reducing the multiple effect and the accelerator process. So really good links there to other concepts. And that's really the key at A-level, is to build those chains of reasoning. Really good stuff. And I think Kudsai comes in, one of our great contributors every week, contributes to more wealth and income inequality, as high inflation might have a regressive effect. Yes, depends what's causing the inflation. But typically, not always, but typically, high inflation bears down more heavily on people who can't respond, people in non-unionized jobs or people with, what have you, fixed incomes, like people in pensioners. Wow, that's amazing. So well done, Team Economics. You've clearly got this really well. I've gone for two. I've gone for the purchasing power. Wages and fixed incomes don't keep pace with rising prices. People spend more time spending more on necessities. They cut back on non-essentials. And crucially, the real interest rate becomes negative. If you've got savings, you get absolutely screwed. Savings lose their real value over time. And then I think I'm going there to kind of the point we had before, I think from you or somebody else, about competitive disadvantage. So if Turkey continually has high inflation, it's still a relatively cheap country to go to, partly because the exchange rate is so weak. But Turkish exports may become less competitive. Now, don't forget, Turkey is outside the EU, but inside the customs union. So there might be a net trade effect with the European Union there. And high inflation fuels a cycle of currency depreciation. So the weak Turkish lira makes imports more expensive, from pharmaceuticals to capital technology to cement to energy, which drives up production costs. Don't worry, by the way, about which points you make, as long as they're valid and explained, you'll be fine. Okay? Really, really good answers. Let's move on. So Turkey was our first little case study. Let's look at the UK now. Let's move to the UK. Hopefully a familiar chart here showing inflation in blue and the central bank interest rate in black there. And you can see what's happened since 2018. This is a classic daily response question. Bank of England adjust the interest rate that commercial banks offer to consumers and businesses. When inflation rose towards 11% in October 2022, the bank raised interest rates, started cutting them last year. The bank also employs quantitative tightening as a policy tool. Right, so there's the context. We're thinking about the UK now. Here's another 1-minute challenge for you. Can you identify for me 2 ways in which higher interest rates can help bring down inflation in the UK? Start the clock. So who can really shine on this one? How does a monetary policy tightening, how does that bring down inflation? Get me into the detail here, everybody. All the students saying that they have, on these live streams, they have their existing school notes with them on an iPad or a folder, and they're look to add to their notes during our sessions. So how does higher interest rates bring down inflation? Keep answering, please keep contributing. They're starting to flow through now. So Scanners talked about a reduction in demand pull inflation. Yes, good. The output gap would close. Kronos talks about higher borrowing costs increase the incentive to save. So the savings mechanism there. So Robert Peel has come in, keeping everybody in line, obviously, as you'd expect. Higher credit will lead households to pay more for their mortgages, leaving them with less effective disposable income to spend. Less spending in the general economy will experience less inflation. Yes. Yep. So people effectively have less disposable income once the mortgage has been paid. Really good point. Excellent. Very, very good. Kian talks about the impact on animal spirits. So business and consumer confidence could be affected, and that their willingness to make those major purchases. Some really good stuff here following the chat window here. Most of you talking about the incentive to spend and save affecting inflationary pressure. Really, really good stuff, which is good. I've gone for that. That's point one. So higher interest rates make other forms of borrowing, personal loans, your credit card, more expensive, and a mortgage, good example. Key concept there, everybody, is effective disposable income. So it's not income after tax, it's income after the mortgage. And it also incentivizes a higher level of saving, which of course, as Ash correctly says, is a withdrawal from the circular flow. Okay, good use of concepts there from Ash. It really hits the nail on the head. My second point is worth adding to your notes if you don't have it. If interest rates go up in the UK, that increases the kind of return on assets in the UK, like government bonds or money in savings accounts. So makes the UK slightly more attractive to foreign financial capital, so-called hot money, looking for the best return. That increases demand for the pound. That causes sterling to appreciate in value, which in turn reduces import costs and cost push inflation. Okay, so I would, yes, Kronos talks about mortgages being fixed or variable. We're going to come back to that, Kronos, in a second or two. But the point I want to make here before we move on is that don't forget the external consequences of higher interest rates. The exchange rate channel is really important and worth having in your notes as part of this key topic. Okay, let's crack on. Let's do some evaluation here. Just again, a 1 minute challenge for the people with us. Can you give me 2 reasons why a rise in interest rates might not necessarily cause inflation to go down? Have a go at evaluation. Here we go. Chance to shine on your evaluation. So we've seen the Bank of England increase interest rates, but it doesn't necessarily cause inflation to fall. This is the key skill of evaluation. You want those top grades. So Mel's coming with a lovely point about time lags. Really good point. Thank you, Mel. And the Keto comes in with some interesting evaluation, which we'll add to our screen here. High confidence level of firms and individuals. Imports might not actually be cheaper due to protectionist measures. Yes, so you've got interest rates going up and the exchange rate depreciating, but there could be other factors driving the price of imports up, counterbalancing that. Really good. Sandy Boy says people might expect interest rates to rise higher in the future, and so carry on spending. Absolutely. Mel talks about scale of interest rate changes. It depends on how much interest rates have gone up. So the Bank of England raised them from 0.5% to 5 point something percent, I think. Quite a big rise. This is good stuff. This is good evaluation, everybody. Evaluation is always challenging and questioning. So Robert Peel brings in the pensioners. Pensioners will receive more from higher interest rates, as well as things like the triple lock, I guess, causing them to spend more. So if you're living off the income from your savings, some people might actually be better off. And again, it depends on demographic change, that shift towards the sort of grey pound, or in my case, the bald pound. Here are my 2 points. Again, just trying to dovetail and support your points. External factors. I think it's a great line, by the way, great line for your notes. Monetary policy is less effective against inflation caused by supply shocks. There's not much that the Bank of England can do to change the price of gas or oil or cocoa or wheat. Okay, and most of the surge in inflation in 2021-22 was due to global factors that monetary policy simply can't control directly. Geopolitics. And this is really well worth just noting that central banks, not powerless, not toothless, but central banks are sometimes have to go against the wind, in the sense that inflationary forces are very powerful. They may be transitory, but most of the recent inflation was not something the Bank of England could necessarily control. And I think quite a few people talked about the mortgage market. I think we mentioned Ewan's point that a much higher proportion of UK homeowners now have fixed rate mortgages. About 75-80% of people have a fixed rate mortgage, 2, 3, 5 years. So they're essentially insulated initially from base rate rises for the duration of their fixed term. So that reinforces Mel's point about time lags. That said, hundreds of thousands of people in the new year will be coming off their fixed 5-year mortgages, and they're going to get hit by much higher mortgages. So there could be some disinflationary forces to come in 2026. Brilliant stuff. Well done, everybody. I think we've covered inflation pretty well. So let's just finish off with unemployment. We'll do a little quick topic on unemployment in the 5 minutes we have left together. So I chose Turkey, I chose the UK, and I chose Spain as my 3 little case studies for you tonight. Average unemployment in the European Union is about 6%. UK, a bit lower than that, I think, 4.5%. Spain has 10% unemployment. Czech Republic less than 3%. But the key is youth unemployment. Economic downturns tend to hit young workers hardest. They have the least experience, often on less secure contracts. Countries like Spain and Greece, which were clearly impacted by the financial crisis, it's been some massive spikes, as you can see, in youth unemployment, from which they've struggled to fully recover. Although there's some good news that you can see from the chart that Spain's made huge progress actually in bringing down youth unemployment, but it's still above 25%, which is 2.5 times what adult unemployment is. Okay, so bearing that information in mind, that's your little case study. I've got 2 questions for you. Think about consequences now. Can you talk to me about the economic and or the social costs of a high rate of youth unemployment in a country such as Spain? Penultimate challenge, have a go. So why does this matter? Spanish youth unemployment, 25%. Why does it matter? And again, a lot of economics is about thinking about cause and effect. This is about effect. Okay, Ash, youth workers 16 to 24 years of age. So young workers typically 16 to 24. Sometimes we go 18 to 24. Okay, good start there from Dan. Thank you, Dan. What are the costs? What are the consequences of a very high rate? This is one of those little questions that really brings out the students who have that, I call it the detailed grasp of a subject. A-level, the top students at A-level, and I know this when you mark essays and mark exams and things in the summer, they just have that little extra detail they bring to the party. Here's Zebi's answer. Welcome to Zebi, contribution tonight. Might lead to a shift to the left of long and average supply. Yes. This is because the productive potential will not be able to stay at a sustained rate due to lower employment rate. So Zebi is really hinting at a long-term consequence, which would take you up to the high level in terms of analysis. Jim in the office, we'll be picking out some others. Nikita's point, lower taxes due to low incomes and high government spending on unemployment benefits. And hinting there, a second point, I think, brain drain with youth leaving to find jobs in other countries, which would link back to the point we had before about the kind of long aggregate supply. Kudzai saying may cause social problems in society such as crime and drug usage. A lot of people talking about impact on government revenue. This is good stuff. Social inequality. Yep. So Chronoster says social inequality, youth potentially might be starting now. Families could have more of a ripple effect than if it was just pensioners. Yep. Excellent. Really good stuff. People talk about a shift to the left in the labour supply. Unemployment has consequences. Okay, the key really is to think about young people. So I've gone for brain drain and scarring, two concepts worth noting. So it may well be the case that young skilled people decide to emigrate to find better job prospects. That really does hinder future growth, particularly if you lose your young, bright, entrepreneurial people. And also scarring effects. Studies have shown that individuals who experience youth unemployment tend to have lower earnings and higher rates of future unemployment. So across their working life, they will contribute less, both in terms of GDP and tax revenues. This is sometimes known as hysteresis. So if you're writing about brain drains, scarring, long run aggregate supply, hysteresis effects, that really is the level of nuanced detail that makes a big difference at A level. Nikita comes in with a lovely definition of hysteresis that's been up on the screen. The loss of skills, making people less employable in the future, and that's linked with an increase in economic inactivity. Okay, last question for tonight. I don't want to take too much of your time. We have things to do. So last question, thinking about cause and effect, can you give me two policies? You can talk about the UK if you want, or another country, designed specifically to reduce the rate of youth unemployment. Let's start that clock again. Now try to make these policies specific to the problem of youth unemployment. That's the real skill at A level. So generic answers are okay, but they won't get you the grades you need. You need to be very specific. Thank you to MK237. That's really good. Yep. And again, you could even get one level lower and be even more specific. Thank you, Mel. Yeah, Jim saying it's very topical. The launch of V levels 30 minutes ago. Keep an eye on the news for that. The government's just published a white paper for V levels. Zanny Boy contributed beautifully tonight. Universities now offer years in industries and placements. It's amazing, really. At our live events, for example, Strong Foundation is a great boost. There's so many more students come up and say hello and say, well, I've applied for a degree apprenticeship or what have you. Yeah. This is really good. Nikita talks about maximum rents as well, so affordable housing. What are you talking about? Vocational training and education. This is what I wanted to do. Don't just write about unemployment. Write about youth unemployment. If you do that, you'll get better grades. If you just write about unemployment, you'll get some marks, you'll get credit. But it's not quite what the A-level examiners are looking for. So please, one of the lessons from this is be specific. Go into the granular detail. Here are my 2 points. Actually, Mel, I think, has come close to the second one. So youth guarantee schemes. 12 years ago, the European Union brought in youth guarantee schemes. Not every country has introduced it, but you get the quality offer of a job, education, apprenticeship, or a traineeship within 4 months of becoming unemployed. Denmark has gone for this in a big way. It's had quite a powerful effect. And things like wage subsidies. So giving employers a subsidy to employ or hire young people, or maybe a tax cut or relief on employment taxes. Bring down national insurance, for example, if you employ a long-term youth unemployed worker. Yeah, Dan, you said the second one earlier. You did indeed. Dan did bring that point up. So things like that really important. And the aim there is to bring down, if you've done some microeconomics, bring down the marginal cost of taking on a younger worker. Okay, great stuff. Really, really good answers tonight. I think these are two topics that you are interested in and engaged by, and they come up every year, don't they? Unemployment and inflation come up in some shape or form every year. Fantastic stuff. If you're on half term, have a break, a well-deserved break. I'm sure if you've got half term next week, you're looking forward to a few days off as well. But we'll be here next Monday, I think, on the dial at 6 o'clock for our regular weekly revision session. I hope you found it useful. If you did, consider pressing the like button, subscribe to the channel. We just basically provide lots of these sessions, along with all of our other videos, to support you. We're always there for students who want to grow their understanding, cement their confidence as they head towards high-stake exams. So thank you for joining in. Stay happy, stay curious, and see you sometime soon.